Hey, and welcome to our ongoing series on Strega, Afro-Sicilian and Southern Italian witchcraft, folk magic, and esotericism. My name is John Michael Salvato. I'll be your host for the series, and this week's topic will be understanding the Strega's path. This video is going to be an excerpt of our full course material, which you can access anytime as part of our Inner Alchemy Mystery School as one of our on-demand courses. The Mystery School allows you to access about a half dozen or so new courses every single month with unlimited access for about $12 a month. So be sure to check that out for more information, and to unlock a free trial at the Mystery School, check out the About section below this video. So now let's go ahead and dive into understanding the Strega's path, the path of the Southern Italian witchcraft practitioner, and I'll see you on the other side. Alchemy. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to week 3 in the Stregoneria 101 class. We are going to be covering or looking this week at unpacking the Strega's path. And so let me go ahead and make sure that I get all of the stuff. I'm using StreamYard to record this. I'm going to get all of that background stuff out of the way. This is probably going to be maybe a 15, 20, maybe 25-minute lecture this week. But I don't want you to dismiss the importance of the things that we're going to cover, because this is sort of the last of the foundational topics that are setting the groundwork for this class, but it's the first moment that we're going to really start to scratch the surface of our own practice. It's the first opportunity you're going to have, excuse me, to really start to consider the things you want to get out of your practice. So let me go ahead and do share screen, Chrome tab, and that should bring us where we need to go. All right, so let's move into an overview of what tonight's lecture is going to be. Tonight, we're going to start looking at the way that a Strega's path is a way of thinking, of living and moving in the world. In this segment, we're going to look at all 3 of those foundational principles. We're going to look at what it means for the Strega or Stregone or practitioner to walk this path. And we're also going to begin to engage some of what we've discussed in the past 3 weeks in our experiential exercise or assignment this week. So this is going to be a little bit of a departure from just purely academic learning. This is when we start to roll our sleeves up. So first of all, I said that the Strega's path and the way of the Strega is a way of thinking. It's a science. When we say that, what I'm talking about is directly related to botany, herbalism, hermeticism, alchemy, and things along those lines. So within Stregoneria, we approach the craft as an ancient science. Botanical science originates in the gardens and kitchens that were found throughout Egypt and Persia and Sicilia and Etruria, throughout Italy and Greece. And simultaneously, if we look at the big picture, we see that this herbal science, this herbalism, seems to have organically arisen in almost every other major culture in the world as well, magically. That includes Japan and throughout Asia, in the Americas. We see this understanding of some of the principles of plants, some of the medicinal uses of plants, at a time long before science was able to catch up, what we traditionally think of as science. But the path of the Strega also includes hermetic and alchemical sciences, which originate in the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt and would have been well known to the scholars in Etruria and Sicilia. So when we talk about hermeticism, that's named after Hermes Trismegistus, and he is alleged to be the creator of Hermeticism, was associated with the Greek god Hermes and with the Egyptian god Thoth. Greeks in the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt recognized the equivalence of Hermes and Thoth, that they were essentially the same archetype and the same being. And so subsequently, the two gods, both Hermes and Thoth, were worshipped as one in a place that had been the temple of Thoth in Khemenu. Now, this certainly doesn't is not an all-encompassing look at the science of Stregoneria, but these are the main areas where we're going to see the healing taking place, the control and mastery of the mind and psychology. But it's also a way of living. So the way of the Strega is a way of life. And when I say that, what I mean is that the Strega lives according to the cycle of the seasons, which are recognized as having a direct correlation to the cycles of our lives. And I don't mean that strictly in the pagan sense of maiden, mother, and crone archetypes, but living in harmony with nature allows us to take the science of botany, the understanding of the reproductive world, techniques and energetic manipulation, and then use those to create a path for healing and restoration of balance or justice in an unjust world. And so it's a way of life. It's a way of living in total harmony with the cosmos, not just nature itself. And these ideas are often captured in the arts. And so we say that Stregoneria is as much a science as it is an art. So some of the more skillful means that we may live in the world may be the production of various types of art and craft, and thus giving us a way to whether it's making a little Strega pouch, what you would call in New Orleans a mojo pouch, a magica that you would take with you. In Sicilian, we call this a santucci, this little holy thing that you take with you to remind you of the magical working that's being done on your part. And so sometimes we have to be creative with that. It might be a skillfully decorated candle. It might be paintings like some of you have seen me do, sketches that you've seen me do as part of my practice, all of which allow us to give expression to that part of our craft. Now, the way of a Strega is also, if nothing else, a complex way of spirituality, a way of moving through the cosmos. So I say that it's a science, it's a way of life, and it's a way of moving through that life, or a way of moving through the cosmos. And what I mean by that is that the very breath of the divine, which the Hebrews called ruach, and in the ancient Strega stories we refer to as respiro della vita, the breath of life, is the essence of our power itself. The Strega understood that if we're all made of uncreatable and indestructible energy, then we can't possibly be our bodies, because our bodies are clearly impermanent. Our bodies are going to age, things are going to break, systems are going to break down. And so if who we really are is this vast reservoir of uncreatable and indestructible energy, then the bodies are strictly a vehicle. So we looked at our vehicle, at our bodies, at this vehicle, as one that's at our disposal for moving through the cosmos. And so we take responsibility for the body itself. We take care of ourselves. We do the things we can to heal as much as we possibly can and fix the imbalances so that we can be more effective in the world at doing the things that we do. And spirituality itself involves a recognition of a feeling or a sense of belief that there's something greater than me, the small m me, something more to being human than just the sensory experience, and that the greater whole of which each of us is a part is an essence of being in and of itself. So in the truest sense, the way of the Strega is a way of spirituality. It's not a religion. It's not a way of religion, because religion is where you're told what to believe. Spirituality is a way in which you experience that which is all around you and interpret it through a lens that's uniquely yours. And so that is what we mean when we say that it's a way of moving. Now, how this expresses itself is as unique as every single one of us that's in this class. Our way, the way of the Strega, expresses itself as hedge witchery, as shamanic practices, as diviners, healers, poisoners, doulas, teachers, and artists. I would say that understanding that the Strega have throughout time and throughout history have been the people that society turned to at times of crisis, at times of pandemic, at times of political unrest. We're also the people that they turn to when they're about to have children or somebody's about to die. We're the ones that they turn to for healing and for instruction. We're also the artists of the community, and artisans. I would suggest that one of the best ways to kind of get a sense of why this mythology would arise in the Middle Ages, in which the Strega suddenly went from being these people that society trusted and turned to and believed in, to the story that we talked about last week, in this mythology of the witches cult and the Dianic religion. How that conflation took place, I think you need to understand first the agenda of the institutional church, which at that time was still very, very closely enmeshed in the power of the Roman Empire. And so you had this group of priests and bishops and cardinals and popes who saw the practitioners of Stregoneria as being a threat to their power. Because if you think about it, if we know that we can heal ourselves using plants and by living in harmony with nature, then what do we need to pay for indulgences for at the church? If we know that we can speak to our loved ones on the other side by seeking out a diviner or somebody who does necromancy, then what do we need to go to the church? If we know that everything we need from the moment of birth to the moment of death can be found in the doulas and the teachers and the shamanic practitioners that live just outside of our towns, then what do we have need for the church? If we understand that the power that drives creation, the cosmos, is a power that each and every one of us possesses wholly and entirely in ourselves, that everything divine, masculine and feminine, exists within each of us, then there is no need for religion. And so you can see why the church felt threatened. And so in their feeling threatened, they created this mythology of Benedante, which were alleged to be, as Ginsburg talks about, the beneficent practitioners, that they were somehow the healers. And mystically, the Benedante happened to be mostly all men, i.e. mostly Benedictine and Dominican monks who were practitioners who unwittingly were serving the agendas of the men that were really in power. And that there was this imaginary group called the Melandante, which unsurprisingly was comprised from the perspective of the Church of Rome to be mostly all women who worshiped the goddess Diana and her brother and lover Dionysus, and who would gather under the full moon in secret. And so they would make up stories about how they would steal children's souls while they slept. Just as Pope Gregory would make up stories about the greatest of Rabbi Jesus's followers, Mary Magdalene, and suddenly claim that, despite the fact that nowhere in Scripture did it say, he would claim she was a prostitute. You see, there was this need for the church to make women of power out to be whores. And if we think about that, so little about that injustice has changed even our own society. How many people did you see on social media in the last 24 hours talking about how Kamala Harris was too pushy or too bitchy? Because powerful women threaten men who are insecure about the source of their own power. And so that really is the lecture portion of this week's topic. We're going to really dig into that. The real meat of this week's topic is going to come into discussion. But there is a ritual that I want everyone to prepare. Now, before I talk about this week's exercise, the ritual, I also want to tell you that my intention is that by the end of the week, I will also have shared with you a second ritual, which is a ritual for preparing the sacred Strega oil. We create this twice a year, both at around the time of Isis's reappearance, of Sirius, of the dog star's reappearance in the sky. We also do, which coincides with the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and then at Lupercalia in February. So around August 15th to 17th to February 13th through 15th are the two times generally that we do this ritual. I did see that there was some discussion in the Masca and the Mystic group with somebody who got a little bit dug their heels in over the fact that neo-pagan Cometicism, the neo-pagan religion that's a reconstruction of ancient Egyptian rites, has their heels dug in that that the new year, which is when Sirius or the dog star reappears in the sky, was August 5th. My objective in sharing that information with everybody wasn't to talk about how neo-pagan religions operate, because we're not a neo-pagan group. It was to talk about that synergy that exists as we celebrate Stella Maris and Yamaya and Isis and all of the symbolism that occurs around this period of time, and how that relates directly to the one thing we do talk about in our group, which is Italian folk magic and witchcraft. So this week, I'll talk about how to do the Strega oil in a post that'll be shared in the general group. That's the how to make Strega oil will be open to anyone who is in our group. It's not a secret. It's not. It's strictly actually a preparation that gives people an anchor point to remember their own point of power. But our ritual for the class is what we would call the rituale per aprire I sentieri. And that essentially means the ritual for opening your pathways. And so, like all the exercises in the course, this can be approached at your own discretion. Nobody's going to hold you accountable to whether or not you perform even the simplest of exercises like this, because we really do believe that we have to honor, first and foremost, your path as being your path. Should you decide that you want to do this ritual, it is very simple. All that's required, which is designed for setting your intention, opening the pathways for your tradition, your unique tradition, to come to life, where we talked about the Ruach, where we talked about the sacred breath of life, that animates your intention within you and then allows it to manifest in your world. So you don't have to understand how this ritual works. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about why it worked, despite your not understanding how it worked. So you need a white candle. It could be one of those little dollar store white votive candles. It could be a white pillar candle. I don't necessarily recommend using tea lights or taper candles. for this particular purpose, and you'll understand why as we talk about how to do it. You'll need wood matches, preferably. If you don't have wood matches, you could use a lighter. Um, but the idea there is that the wood gives you that connection to the earth. You're going to need dried rue. If you can't get dried rue readily, go to your local plant store, Home Depot, wherever, gardening shop. Get some violets, get some night blooming jasmine, or simply pick up some organic frankincense or Palo Santo incense. I don't recommend buying Palo Santo on the internet because we want to make sure that the things that we use are ethically sourced. So frankincense, incense, is really enough if you can't get the dried plants. I would also recommend, although this is not necessary, it's not actually in the Book of Shadows or the Book of Commands, but I like to put that candle in a bowl of water so that we've got the representation of that element as well. And then you're going to need a black marker or pen. And when I say a marker, I mean a marker that you can actually write sentences with, not a thick Sharpie like the Mango Menace uses to sign executive orders. You want to be able to write out on a little piece of paper. So you're going to need a white sheet of paper, maybe the size of an index card or a little bit smaller, maybe a Post-it note size. And then you're going to need some black thread. In the old tradition, of course, that would be cotton thread, but that was really because your choices were cotton or wool. If it's a cotton synthetic or poly blend, it really doesn't matter. But you want that thread to be black. Now, the best place to perform this ritual is your newly cleaned kitchen table, which we talked about last week, how important that was. And for best results, you're going to want to do that when there's no distractions. I would recommend taking a shower or a bath before you begin, just so that you can relax and just so that you have that sense of being clean and fresh when you come to the table. And then you're going to take a small sheet of paper. You're going to write one sentence on that paper that is your intended outcome for this class. What do you want to accomplish? What do you, in a single sentence, what is it that you hope to achieve by taking this class? And then you're going to fold the paper up into quarters and place it on the table to your left. Then you will light the white candle, holding in your heart or calling upon all of your ancestors going back through the ages. And if you wish, if it's something that resonates with you, part of the verbiage that I use is that I'm calling on the ancestors across the eons and planes of existence to be with you. That way, ancestors who go all the way back to the old ones are going to respond. And then light the incense or the dried herbs, and you can either do the dried herbs on a little charcoal disc. You can sprinkle it into the candle, slowly crush the dried herbs up, sprinkle them into the candle. If you do that, you want to make sure that you're doing it slowly enough, not so as not to snuff out the candle. And then I want you to read aloud your intention, but I want you to do it in a formulary way. So what you're going to say is, I don't know how, whatever your intention is, I don't know how I reconnect with my ancestors in a meaningful and magical way. All I know is that I connect with my ancestors in a meaningful and magical way. Restate your intention, and I am fulfilled with the aid and the guidance of the ancestors and the old ones. So maybe your intention is to become a healer. I don't know how I become a healer. All I know is that I am a healer now, and I'm fulfilled with the aid and the guidance of the ancestors and the old ones, and so it is. I don't know how I become adept at Stegonaria. All I know is that I am adept now. So you state your outcome in the positive and present sense. I am adept at Stegonaria now, and I am fulfilled with the aid and the guidance of the ancestors and the old ones, and so it is. Then you take the black cotton thread and wrap it 3 times one way around the little piece of paper, and then you wrap it 3 times the other way, just like you're doing a package, so that you've made like a cross or a big X around the paper. And what you're doing in that moment with that black thread is you are binding your intention to the paper. And so some of you, that's going to click in your head and you're going to say, aha, so this is a binding ritual. And yes, it is. You're binding. We always think of binding as being something, oh, I'm binding somebody from doing harm to me, or I'm binding this negative outcome from happening. But what we do when we bind is we're literally binding something. So you can bind something positive, to an outcome. Your intention is being bound to that paper and bound to that ritual. And if your lifestyle permits, I would recommend at that point having a glass of wine first, taking maybe a shot glass full, and say, I offer this to the ancestors and to the old ones. I'm toasting my success, and then put that little shot glass down, pour yourself a glass of wine, enjoy the wine sitting there in front of the candle. Start to allow yourself to feel certain of your intention. And when you're done, take that little packet and stash it somewhere before you extinguish the candle. Stash the little packet somewhere. Now, I like sticking packets like this, intentions like this, inside a statue or a bell or a vase that doesn't have water in it, for example. I like putting it places where it's not going to be disturbed. And then allow the candle to burn for at least 3 hours. You do not have to sit in front of the candle for the whole 3 hours, but you do need to sit in front of the candle for at least 30 minutes. And then when it's time to extinguish the candle, you can either let it burn until the candle is completely burned out. It's one of the reasons I like to put it in water, in a bowl of water, so that there's no fire risk. But do not blow the candle out. In our tradition, when we blow candles out, we're blowing the intention away. So you want to extinguish it either by using a snuffer, one of those little things that they'd have in churches and in the medieval homes, or just take for example, if this were the candle, take a plate and put the plate on top of the candle and let the plate sit there until the oxygen is eliminated and the candle naturally goes out. So that is how we extinguish candles, and that is all that we have to do. Now, as final notes, I want to just kind of highlight a couple really important things that may be a little bit different than what you've seen on social media. In our tradition, we don't take photos of our altars or our magical workings or our books of command and post them on social media. And I realize how enticing this would be if I were to take some of these old books and post photographs of them, particularly just to share with folks some of the amazing doodles and notes that were passed down to me. But we don't do that. We generally consider those who do that sort of thing to be risking everything, because you're essentially opening yourself up to attacks on your energy, attacks on your magical workings. I can look at a photograph that somebody posts on Facebook, and I can tell you exactly what they did before that photograph was taken in terms of the ritual that they did. And if I had that intention, I could undo their ritual. So that's why we don't do that. Now, also be aware that when you're more experienced, there are things you can do where you stage a photograph for use in marketing. Let's say one of the things that you do is to do prosperity work for people, or to do healing work for people. There are things we can do either for staging, or in more advanced ways, things we can do that actually protects us from somebody reversing a spell. That is much more advanced work, and we'll get to that later on in the course. So please don't judge others that you might see who choose to photograph or post a photograph anyway, something that they do, because you and I don't know if everything that you're seeing on social media is exactly what we assume that it is. And so that's the other reason why we avoid this, is because there are also times and there are also people who will post a photograph of a particular working in order to make us want to respond viscerally to what they're doing. And in doing so, they're stealing some of our energy mindfully. And so when somebody posts a photograph, I will look at the photograph. If it's a nice photograph, I'll click like on their photograph. If it's somebody that I respect and whose work I know and trust. If I don't know the person, I just scroll right past it. So we want to make sure that you guys really understand that. And as we say at the end of these classes, often what I'd like you to do is go ahead and comment underneath this video what your takeaway was or any questions that you have about this material. And then we're going to talk about that on Monday night's live class. So I hope this has been helpful and useful for you guys. I hope you have fun with the exercise itself, with the ritual. And really allow yourself to sit with that question. What is it that I want out of this class? What is the bigger picture that I'm hoping to accomplish by becoming more skillful in the ways of Italian folk magic? Write that on your intention paper, bind it, and then stash it someplace for safekeeping. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys on Monday night.